Hey math students, we're going to add fractions with unlike denominators. It's a little bit trickier, so just pay attention, but I think you all can do it. All right, so we are going to add 1/2 plus 1/4 equals what? All right, so when we add, we have to make sure the bottoms are the same, all right? So we have to change the bottoms so they are the same number, all right? So first how we do that is we try to find the least common factor. And by doing that, we're gonna find all of the factors of 2 and 4 to see which ones are the same, all right? So let's do the factors of 2, which would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. All right, so let's do the factors of 4. All right, so that would be 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. All right, so by looking at our list, we're going to find the least common factor, which means the smallest number that both of them can go into it. Doesn't matter if it can go like 2 times, 1 times, 3 times, we're just going to find the smallest number. All right, so let's see, 2 and 2. 4, 4, all right, so that's the same. So that's the same for both. So 4, 4, 2 and 4 can go both into 4 times. 2 times 2 equals 4, and then 4 times 1 equals 4. Why we don't pick the 8 and the 8, even though they are the same, there's a smaller number that both of them go into. So we're going to pick the 4. It's going to be easier to do our math. All right, so let me erase that, and let's remember that the bottom is 4. All right. So because 1 is already 4, we're not going to change it, okay? So we're going to leave the 1/4 the same. But we are going to change the 1/2, all right? So how we change it so we have the denominator is 4, we are going to multiply both the top and the bottom by 2. All right, remember, whatever you do to the top, you are going to do to the bottom. So now we're going to multiply. So 1 times 2 is 2, and then 2 times 2 is 4. All right, now we're going to bring this one down because it's the same. We don't have to change anything about it. All right, so now we're going to add. Look, notice how they are the same denominator. So basically it's like adding fractions with like denominators now. All right, so we're going to take the top. 2 plus 1 equals 3. And remember, when we were adding the bottom, we don't change it, right? When we're adding, we just keep it the same. We bring it over. All right, so like before, we always must have a simplified fraction. So it's 3/4 simplified. That means can anything but 1 go into it? So we know that 1 can go into both, but can like 2 go into both, all right? So can 2 go into 3? No. All right, can 2 go into 4? No. So that means the only number is 1. All right, so that means 3/4 is simplified. All right, so let's do one more problem. It's a little bit trickier, but I think you all can do it. All right, so just remember, we got to make sure the bottoms are the same. So we're just going to find the least common factor. All right, so let's do 3/5 plus 4/10. All right, notice how when we add, they are not the same. So that means we have to change them into the same. All right, so let's find the least common factor. So let's take all the factors of 5. So we got 5, 10, 15, 20. All right, let's take the factors of 10. All right, let's start at 10. 10, 20, 30, 40. Okay, let's find what factors are the same. All right, so we have 5, 10, 15, 20, 10, 20, 30, 40. All right, so I see that 10 and 10 are the same. Remember, we want least common factor, so it would be 10 and not 20. All right, so now we know that the least common factor is 10 because both 5 and 10 can go into it. 5 times 2 is 10, 10 times 1 is 10. All right, so let's change it. Let's change the denominators, all right? So 5 times 2, and then whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do the top, so 3 times 2. And because the 10 is already a 10, we're going to keep this whole fraction the same, all right? So 3 times 2 is 6. 5 times 2 is 10. Bring this one down because we didn't change it. Plus 4/10. All right, so now, look, we have the common factors. All right, and so we have like denominators, so we can add equally, all right? So now we got 6 plus 4 equals 10. All right, and now we keep the same. We keep it the same. All right, so 6 plus 4 is 10, and then we keep the bottom, so it's 10. Look how we have 10 over 10, all right? Anytime you have the same number on the top and you have the same number on the bottom, it equals 1. Because when we divide 10 divided by 10, it equals 1, all right? So when you have the same as the bottom, it equals 1 whole fraction, all right? So the answer to this problem is 1, all right? It took us a little steps to get there, but we got there. All right, let me do one more. This is the trickiest of them all, but I feel like I think you can all do it. You can all ace it. All right, so let's do, how about we do 4/8 plus 2, let's say tenths. All right, so remember, we need to make these the same. All right, so how we do that, we find the least common factor. So let's find the factors of 8. All right, so that would be like 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48. All right, let's find the factors of 10, which would be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. All right, do you see a factor that is the same? All right, I see that 40 is the same in both. All right, so that means that our least factor is 40. So we're going to change the denominator to 40. How we do that is we are going to change the 8 to a 40 by multiplying it by 5. And whatever you do the top, you have to do the bottom. All right, so now when we multiply this out, 4 times 5 is 20. 8 times 5 is 40. All right, so now remember, whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top, okay? So, oh, sorry, I meant now we have 10. So what does 10 times what equals 40? And that would be times 4. All right, so 2 times 4 is 8, and then 10 times 4 is 40. All right, so now we have the same factor, the same denominator. We have 40 in both, all right? So it's going to be easier to add. So therefore, it's going to be just like our previous video of adding fractions with like denominators. All right, so 20 plus 8 is 28. Remember, we keep the bottom the same. 40 plus 40 is 40. Or we just keep it the same. We don't have to add. But so now we have 28 goes into 40. So we have to simplify it. Remember, we have to simplify it. So notice how both are even. So we know that both can be divided by 2. So how about we start with that and we'll see how it goes. But there's also another number, but let's just start with 2 and then we can come back to it as well. All right, so 28 divided by 2 is 14, and then 40 divided by 2 is 20. All right, now we can continue going on. Let's see, there was a bigger number that we could have used, okay? Then we get down to a smaller number, and that would be 4. So 4 can go into both numbers, all right? So 28 divided by 4 is 7, and 40 divided by 4 is 10, all right? So that's the answer. 7/10 cannot be simplified, so all that work led us to 7/10. All right, I'm going to show you one more, even though I just said this was the last one, but I feel like I think you can do it and it's going to be good practice, all right? So we are going to add, let's say, 3, 6 plus 4, 4/5. All right, so that will look like this. Ready? So 6 and 5. We need it to be a like denominator. So remember, we have to switch it. We have to find the least common factor. So let's do the factors of 6. So it'd be 6, 12, 18, 24, and 30, 36. Let's do the factors of 5, which would be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Oh, I see one that's the same. 30 and 30. So that means we are going to shoot for 30 because there's no less number that goes into both, okay? So we are going to do 30. How we get to 30 is we're going to do some multiplication, remember? All right, so 6 times what equals 30, and that would be times 5. Whatever you do to the top, you do the same bottom. 5 times 6. Whatever you do to the top, you do the bottom. Notice sometimes in order to find the least common factors, it's easy just to multiply the bottom times the bottom. So like 6 times 5, so you do this by 5 and you do this by 6. That's just an easy way instead of finding least common factors. But sometimes those numbers can get really big where there might be a smaller number. All right, so what is 3 times 5 is 15. 6 times 5 is 30. All right, let's do 4 times 6 is 24. 5 times 6 is 30. Now we have a like denominator, so it's going to be easier to add. So what's 15 plus 24? All right, so we can do 24 plus 15. 5 plus 4 is 9. 2 plus 1 is 3. So now we have the bottom will be 30 and the top will be 39. All right, so this is called an improper fraction. All right, so you cannot have a bigger number on top. You always must have a smaller number on the bottom. So we have to change this fraction into a mixed number or a simplified form of this fraction. All right, so first, before I do a mixed fraction, I'm going to simplify it so it's easier to make into a mixed number. So there's one number that can be divided to simplify it, and we're going to divide the top and the bottom by 3. All right, we're going to get 39 divided by 3 is 13, because we know if I did the math out, 13 times 3 is 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 3 is 3 times 1 is 39. All right, so 30 divided by 3 is 10. All right, does that look like a little bit easier number, smaller number to turn into a mixed fraction? How you turn into a mixed fraction is by switching the numbers around to try to find a whole. All right, so how we do that is how many times can 10 go into 13? And can only go into once. So we're going to make that into the whole number. And then how many would you have left over? So like 1 times 10 is 10, and then you would have 11, 12, 13. You had 3 left over, which would go on the top, and then the bottom would stay the same. So the mixed fraction of 39/30ths would be 1 3/10. All right, that is as simplified as it can go. So therefore, when you add 3/6 plus 4/5, the answer then becomes 1 3/10. All right, so that was a little tricky, but I think you guys can do it, and if we need more practice, just let me know. All right, so I gave you some practice questions on the packet I sent you, so you can work, and if you have any questions, please let me know. All right, bye.